Mr. Jordan, this isn't a both sides issue. Our Capitol was attacked. 5 people are dead. Countless people are wounded. We had a group of domestic terrorists, homegrown fascists, that came to the Capitol building to desecrate this symbol of democracy and freedom, and to do harm to people. And with all due respect, I'm glad that all it took for you to call for unity and healing was for our freedom and our democracy to be attacked. But for the last several months, the gentleman from Ohio and others have given oxygen to the president's conspiracy theories. And we all want healing, but in order to get to healing, we need truth and we need accountability. I mean, people came to the Capitol building to try to launch a coup, to stop us from upholding our constitutional responsibilities. I mean, I was on the floor, at the House floor. I know you were and others, but I was one of the last people to walk off the House floor. And when I went into the Speaker's lobby, I saw this mob, trying to break glass doors to get access to the floor and God knows what else. They defied the Capitol Police, who were bravely trying to protect us. And I saw in their eyes, hate and evil. And I'm just grateful that more people weren't harmed in this terrible attack. But they came here to destroy things, to desecrate things. And they did so because the President of the United States told them to go do it. At his urging, they came to the Capitol. Some of them, I'm listening to some of the commentary, thought he was here. But he incited that mob, and unfortunately, some of our colleagues joined in that effort to gin things up. And our job as elected officials is to tell the truth. So my question for you is, will you admit that Joe Biden won fair and square and the election was not rigged or stolen?
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman?
I can.
Mr. Chairman, what I did over the past several months is follow the process that the Constitution prescribes. It wasn't me who said it, was Justice Ginsburg.
That's not the question I asked.
No, I'll get to the question, but I'm going to get to your comments too.
I don't need a filibuster. We just want to get...
I'm not going to filibuster, Mr. Chairman. The late Justice Ginsburg said January 6th is the date of ultimate significance. That's how Congress set this up in the statute they passed dealing with the 12th Amendment. So we followed that process, and at 4 a.m. on Thursday, January 7th, when we concluded our business on the floor, Vice President Biden became President-elect Biden. That's how the process plays out. Those of us who spoke against the unconstitutional way several states conducted their election, we're following the process, and we did nothing different than Democrats have done every time a Republican's been elected this century. In fact, our colleague who is sponsoring this resolution objected to on January 6, 2017.
So is that
we followed the process. Of course, it's a yes, and I've said that publicly on television on Sunday.
But I'm not asking about the process. I'm asking you to make a statement that the election was not stolen, that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris won fair and square. That's the question.
The question you asked me was, is Joe Biden the vice president? Is Vice President Biden vice president? And I said, yes, of course he is.
You just repeated the question. So Joe Biden won fair and square.
He won the election because the way the process works is the last chance to object is January 6th. And
if we want to talk about
objection didn't prevail.
If we want to talk about healing, we have to talk about truth. And if we want to talk about healing, we also need to deal with the issue of accountability. And what this president incited last Wednesday is unforgivable and unconscionable. I'm used to the excesses of this president, the over-the-top statements, the pandering to some of the most intolerant groups in this country. But I never thought I would see what he said at that rally. And so the deal is, my question was very simple. I'm not asking you to make a statement that the election was not stolen, that Joe Biden won fair and square. And, one of the ways to promote healing is for you to say yes and to put that on in your Twitter account so that all these people who bought into a lie will start hearing from some of the people that were pushing this. The answer is, the American people.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman,
yes.
Joe Biden is going to be sworn in as president. He is President-elect Joe Biden.
That's not the question I asked. That is not the question I asked. Yeah,
our concern and why we raised objections was in several states, the rules were changed in unconstitutional fashion when the state legislature did not change election law. You had Secretary of State, you had governors, you had Supreme Courts. In some cases, you had county clerks changing the election law. That's what we're pointing out. That's all we were pointing out.
Yeah, well,
just like our colleague Mr. Raskin pointed out concerns he had on January 6, 2017, with the election of
the gentleman
Trump then.
Well, you refused to answer that question, and I think that's one of the. You want to talk
I
about?
did not refuse. He's going to be the president. I've said that on television. He's going to be the president. I know that. The country knows that.
That is not the question I asked. I asked you to lay bare the fact that this lie out there that somehow that Joe Biden did not win the election fair and square. He did. The president to this day continues to perpetrate that. And so does.
Are you saying there was no problems? There was no concerns with this election? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Chairman? Of course, I understand Joe Biden won. But are you saying there's no concerns with this election?
I will yield to the gentleman from Maryland if he has any.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I just want to make one point about this somewhat abstruse Article 2, Section 1 argument that was made the day when all of us almost lost our lives, as Lindsey Graham put it. I was moved by something Lindsey Graham said. He said, these people came in to the buildings without the metal detectors. They could have been armed. They could have had a bomb, and all of us could have died. So I think we do have to try to step up our discussion from the normal level of just partisan rhetorical combat and point scoring. The point our colleague from Ohio makes about Article 2, Section 1 was raised by Trump's campaign team in numerous courts across the country where it faced the same massive, decisive repudiation by Trump's own appointees, by Republican judges, by Democratic judges. It is ridiculous and empty. It's an empty void. There's basically nothing to respond to there. And the state legislatures that they are nominally advocating for are not taking that position. Those legislatures are not going to court to try to say our own Supreme Court violated our prerogatives. Our own governor violated our prerogatives. Nobody buys that. So Mr. Jordan is correct. They had an argument. It is a ridiculous and silly argument. And this is a point of common sense. And I want America here to follow the great Tom Paine. Use your common sense. That argument was made, and it helped to delay the proceedings. And then this mob comes in, and there's at least one call from the president during the mayhem and the chaos to a senator telling him to keep the objections going and to prolong the process. So I just disagree profoundly with the substance of that argument. Every court in the land that looked at it has rejected it. The state legislatures don't buy it. It's fine that Mr. Jordan wants to go back to it, but I think all of us should do some soul searching about 5 dead Americans, a Capitol police officer who's dead, dozens of people wounded, lots of our Capitol Hill cops in the hospitals, and a country on edge, and an inflamed right wing which thinks that we are on the verge of a civil war. Now, come on, guys. Can we get it together to act as a rules committee together as a Congress to tell the vice president simply to acknowledge what's obvious, which is this president is not up to the job for the next 8 days, and a lot of danger still faces us. That's my perspective.
Well, I don't want to belabor this point, but I will be honest with you, I am stunned that after all that has happened, that we can't get a definitive answer that
Mr. Chairman,
is not stolen.
Mr. Chairman, I said that Joe Biden won the election, but there were problems with how it was done, I think, in an unconstitutional fashion in the states we objected to. I would also point out,
People came here.
you guys, do you disagree with what Justice Ginsburg said?
People came here, Mr. Jordan, because they believed the lie that the president and many people in this chamber perpetrated, that this election was not run in a fair and square fashion. And to the president to this day continues to perpetrate the lie that somehow he won this election by a landslide. And so I think, we want to talk about healing. I mean, the people who came here thought the president was telling the truth. Not many of you who were backing him up were telling the truth. And it ended up in this terrible ordeal in which 5 people lost their life. So,
Mr. Chairman, did you object in 2017 on January 6th?
I didn't say the election was stolen. I said, in fact, I acknowledged that he was the president the day after the election. Hillary Clinton conceded the day after the election.
I think you said
I went to his inauguration.
I think you said the
It
election
was inauguration.
And so I raised objections to,
Mr. Jordan, excuse me. What I raised objections to was the fact that all of our intelligence agencies had raised concerns about Russian interference in our election, which apparently didn't matter to some of you. But that's what I did. I did not question. I did not try to overturn the election. And it went. And the entire protestation. The protestation was 8 minutes. All right. So anyway, I think you have answered my question, and I would now.
No, we have a double standard. You and Mr. Raskin are allowed to object in 2017. No Republicans are allowed to.
Mr. Chairman, could I respond to that?
Yes, I yield to the gentleman.
Okay. There's a terrible false moral equivalency going on here. Throughout American history, a lot of members have tried to point out technical or procedural problems in the Electoral College. The one that I pointed out was that there were elected officials who were also electors in violation of the state constitution. I think it was in Florida, and I think I simply raised that point for maybe it was 15 or 20 seconds. Nowhere did I ever incite mob insurrection against the government of the United States. There were millions of people, to take up the chairman's point, who were convinced that Vladimir Putin, with his cyber sabotage against the DNC and Hillary Clinton and so on, had profoundly influenced the outcome of the 2016 election. But what did the Democrats do? They put on, pink winter hats, marched peacefully with 1 million people, joined Planned Parenthood, worked with their churches to try to reform America. Nobody was out there agitating for a violent armed insurrection against the government of the United States. I yield back.